All right, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for being here. So today we're going to talk all about revving up that metabolism and exactly how you can do that. And with me today, I've got the expert. She is a multi-award-winning New York Times bestselling author of 30 books on weight loss, diet, detox, including her Fat Flush series, which I'm familiar with. She is a certified nutrition specialist and expert in women's health. Her latest book, Radical Metabolism, goes beyond the paleo and keto diets, revealing the secrets to reviving a sluggish, over 40 metabolism. Welcome, Louise Gittleman.
Thank you, Karen. How are you?
I'm fantastic. And so she's told me that she's not feeling great today, so there could be some coughing, right, Louise?
Well, we were on a cruise. We were on Oprah Winfrey's cruise. We were on her special Time of Your Life cruise. And quite honestly, I was exposed to some cheese. I am very allergic to cheese, which is my favorite comfort food, quite frankly.
Oh.
And it was hidden in some of the foods, and I didn't realize it even though I questioned profusely, so I have a little bit of postnasal drip, so you'll have to excuse me. But we will talk about revving up your metabolism because that hasn't impacted or dampened my enthusiasm.
Awesome. And I love that you have the book out. Usually I actually have the book, but I got yours on Kindle, on my Kindle thing. So I thought, should I bring my tablet and show it to everybody? So I appreciate that. Awesome book. I think it's great that you're still putting stuff out there after this many years, because I was listening to you on another podcast saying to the host, I think it was Ben Greenfield, saying, back in the 1970s, when I started this journey, I was like, wow, this woman's like the trailblazer of nutrition. So I love it.
Thank you.
Yes. So for those that haven't read it and don't know you, let's just tell them a little bit about yourself, because you were a bit of a health heretic, I want to say, back in the 1980s. And you went against like the low-fat diet craziness back then. So you knew back then how important the fat was. And so that must have been tough for you to be the person saying, hey, we need some fat in our diet.
Well, I was the director of nutrition at the Pritikin Longevity Center, and that was the harbinger of the no to low fat, high complex carbohydrate diet that everybody was on in the late 70s and actually early 80s, quite honestly. And I learned firsthand the pros and the cons of removing fat from the diet. So based on my experience at the renowned Pritikin Center, where we had CEOs and royalty and movie stars from around the world, I learned one thing, and that is that the right fat is absolutely essential to health. The problem was that we weren't eating the right fats, and not all fats deserve to be demonized. So I wrote a book based on my experience called Beyond Pritikin, and I was the first nutritionist in the country. And yes, I was a nutritional heretic back then, and I still am now, who said that you got to put fat back. I was way before keto was popular, way before paleo was well known, wrote about it and the importance of not just saturated fats like butter and cream and coconut oil, but the essential fats that all of these trending diets now are omitting. Wrote about it way back then. It's been a trend in all of my 35 books. And I'm still on the front lines proclaiming the benefits of the essential fatty acids, especially the demonized and overly unrecognized and disrespected omega-6s. So this is all about rewriting the rules of nutrition and going against the grain, which I have with gluten many years ago as well.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, let's go there first, because I am a nutritionist, and I've always said, you got to stay clear of the omega-6. We've got way too much of it on our diet. You got to up the omega-3. And your book is saying, no, wait a sec, we need more omega-6. but they're a different kind of omega-6 that not a lot of people think about. So can you just explain the differences there?
Yeah, I mean, we have too many of the processed commercial omega-6s in the diet. So I'm not talking about canola oil or
Right.
processed altered hexane-rich sunflower seed oil or corn oil. I'm talking about the pure omega-6s that are unaltered, unheated, not exposed to light, that you get in hemp seed oil, that you get in sesame seed oil, that you get in raw butter and raw cream. They are actually a source of omega-6, by the way. And pine nut oil, which is my secret sauce, in this book, which will dampen your metabolism, tamp down hunger, and depress appetite. So there are a lot of weight loss beautification secrets that I reveal in this book.
Yes, you do. I've already started collecting my good omega-6s and going out there, and I'm like on the way to work tomorrow, I'm like, I wonder if there's some product out there that has borage oil and primrose oil, because these are what you're talking about as well, right? With the omega-6s.
Those are the botanical versions. But when I started writing many years ago, quite honestly, Karen, we didn't have the botanical versions of the evening primrose oil, the borage, the black currant seed oil. We had the botanical versions, not the oil versions, which we have today, which is where hemp seed oil comes in handy. And there's hemp seed oil in every health food store in North America these days. Very important for protecting against radiation, which we are immersed in 24/7. Very important for skin conditions. So if you've been on a keto program, if you've been on a paleo program and you haven't lost weight and you still have skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis, you got to give this book a try.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. So when it comes to these essential fatty acids, you also talk a lot about the fact that your gallbladder has to be up and running in order to be able to digest these fats. And I run into a ton of women in my work that have started a ketogenic diet or a paleo-based diet with these high fats, and they don't do well, and they're not losing weight. And a lot of them are missing their gallbladder. So can you tell us a little bit about that connection between those?
Yeah, there's a dramatic connection. You need to have a gallbladder to release bile, which digests fat into little particles that your system can assimilate and utilize into the system. So if you don't have the timed release of bile, because you no longer have the storage tank known as the gallbladder, you need to make some substitutions in those regards. I talk about the foods that will help to supplement that. I talk about the supplements and other elements that you can use in terms of lifestyle interventions to make sure that you're digesting fats. It's insane to have a diet high in fat when you do not have the internal mechanism to break down those fats, because when you don't break down the fats without the proper release of bile, that mechanism, you also don't flush toxins, nor do you rev the thyroid, because as I mentioned in the book, there is a connection, an unholy alliance between the gallbladder and the thyroid. So missing your gallbladder without substituting proper herbs, supplements, and foods will be the disastrous recipe for a halting of your metabolism. So the thyroid is dramatically connected to the gallbladder. It's the first book that makes that connection.
Yeah, that's the first time I had heard that. And is that why then the main reason why somebody won't be able to lose weight on a ketogenic diet then, and how that affects, because it affects your thyroid?
Well, it's one of the reasons. So if you don't have your gallbladder, or if you have congested bile, so it's not even if you have your gallbladder out, but the bile is congested, it's not going to be breaking down the fats that you're going to be partaking in. And saturated fats that are so prevalent on a ketogenic diet, whether it's coconut oil or MCT oil or butter or cream or bacon or whatever have you, they're harder on the system than these unsaturated, healthy parent oils that I talk about in the book.
Right. And so what are the symptoms? Like if somebody's thinking, is this me? What would the symptoms, besides the weight loss resistance, what are the symptoms that would show up if someone's gallbladder isn't functioning up to par?
Or if they have toxic bile or congested bile. So it's not just for those without their gallbladder. It's for many women that are taking estrogen replacements, because the estrogen gets dumped into the bile, makes it very congested. And then you can run the risk of gallstones. So there are many other subcategories under that lack of gallbladder that come into play. The symptoms would be dry skin, dry hair, stools that are not colored properly, that are very pale or clay colored, bloating, gas, waking up at let's see, the gallbladder hours, I think between 11 and 1, problems also with the liver, issues with the ear and tinnitus, problems with radiating leg pain because of the gallbladder meridian. The symptoms go on and on, that symptoms that seem disarmingly deceptive because you wouldn't normally think it's a gallbladder issue. But when people go on the program, not only can they lose weight for the first time, this is good for people with weight loss resistance, it's good for people with any kind of thyroid issue, whether it is hypothyroidism or an autoimmune condition. We've got tons of Hashimoto people that are finally feeling good, getting their energy back, and that we're seeing a lowering of the thyroid antibodies.
Wow. And I see so many women with hypothyroidism now. It's a growing epidemic. So yeah. I think that's a piece that not anyone's really heard of. So I think that people should really pay attention to that. Now, did you ever do the Helga Clark's liver flush with the gallstones, where you flush out the gallstones? Have you heard of it?
I'm not a believer in that. You're talking about Hulda,
yeah.
Hulda Clark.
Yes.
I'm not a believer in that because that can be toxic. That can be dangerous if you get a stone that's stuck in the gallbladder duct.
Oh, so I did it so many times, Anne-Louise. It was horrible, and I don't ever.
No, I wouldn't do that. I mean, we don't know what stones are there, what gravel is there. There are other ways that you can disintegrate, you can disengage and decongest the gallbladder stones, and you can actually melt them down. And I give you some of those remedies. It's all in the book. I talk about bitters, I talk about foods, we talk about a remedy called orthophosphoric acid, which is mentioned in the book. So all of that is there. I'm not a believer in any of these internet or otherwise promoted cleanses that are out there because they can have toxic effects, like the problem with the gallbladder stone that gets stuck in the duct. And that's no fun. It can be actually fatal.
Yeah, and I'm not recommending anybody to do it, just for my listeners. I did it when I was younger, I think I did every diet out there when I was younger, but that was one of them, where you drank this horrible concoction of olive oil and then you drank Epsom salt water, and it was the most wretched thing you've ever tasted. And you did let go of a lot of gallstones afterwards, but I have read that that it is dangerous because you can get them lodged and you have to go to the hospital if something like that happens. So right. It's not something to play with. No, no, not a good idea. So when it comes to the bitters, I don't think many people know what a bitter food is. So what is bitters?
So bitters are foods that have a bitter taste to them, and they're not very common in the American diet anymore, but we actually have a bitter taste bud located on the tongue. So it's very much part of our genetic blueprint. Bitters are foods that will help the promotion of bile and the digestion of all kinds of foods because they promote the digestion of proteins as well as acid-based minerals. So it's very important for the triggering of hydrochloric acid. We talk about bitters, I think of fruits like grapefruit. One of the reasons the grapefruit diet works so well for those with insulin resistance and weight loss resistance was the bitter component that it contains. Half a grapefruit 3 times a day before meals, people lose weight like crazy.
Oh, I never tried that one.
That one really,
I've heard of it, but I haven't tried it.
It's been studied at Scripps. This one works.
Wow.
Bitters, coffee is a bitter. A mold-free, organic, rich in polyphenols coffee. So we've got coffee as being a bitter. Dandelion root tea, so good for the gallbladder, is a bitter. Lots of vegetables like your bitter greens, arugula, endive, rocket, radicchio, all kinds of things that are bitter. Even collards are considered a bitter. Watercress is a well-known bitter. And herbs and spices, ginger is considered a bitter. Mint is considered a bitter, as well as turmeric. loads of things to do. And in the program that I use, I make sure that people even have drinks called do-it-yourself bitters. When they go out at night and have some alcohol, some spirits, we talk about Angostura bitters with maybe a little vodka and cranberry juice thrown in.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because I remember when back in my bartending days, we would put bitters in it. That's how I know of it, put bitters in a drink.
But it's good for you. It boosts metabolism. It's good for your digestion. So, I mean, you can live the life, you know, when you're on a radical metabolism program. So I made it very usable, very user-friendly, good for people that drink, good for people that don't drink. And the concept of coffee being part of your routine, I found very reassuring for all my coffee lovers out there.
I liked that.
So coffee is part of the routine. Chocolate is also considered a bitter. We like the Lily's brand because it seems to be the less in sugar. It has a little erythritol, a little stevia, but all those things are very healthy. So yeah, so bitter is back, and bitter is very much part of the routine, which allows you to digest the fats, which is missing in so many other programs.
Now, could you use essential oils of ginger and mint, like in water as a bitters?
I'm sure that you can.
Yeah, I was thinking that when I was reading your book because I have all the nice essential oils, and I thought, I wonder if I could just concoct something with my essential oils that would act like a bitters.
You can with one of the if you look at the do-it-yourself recipes, you can just substitute one of your bitter essential oils for one of the bitters in the recipe. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I've seen bitters in health food stores, but they're usually in an alcohol base, which I can't tolerate.
They are in an alcohol base. I wish that they weren't, but you're absolutely right. So do it yourself, and that's why we have the do-it-yourself recipes of the little bitter cocktails. Metabolixirs is what we call them, Karen.
Yeah, and don't you have a line too of supplements that have it like a supplement that's a bitter, or no?
I don't have a supplement that's a bitter. I have a supplement that everybody that doesn't have a gallbladder should use called Bile Builder, which is pretty extraordinary in terms of what people are finding. The lack of the inability to lose weight goes away with Bile Builder. They can now digest fats. They can digest protein even a little bit better for some reason. And their thyroid issues seem to get tamped down. So there's a lot to be said for the digestion affecting every part of the body, including metabolism, which is good because we all want a radical metabolism. Well, we're doing all the right things, or so we think, and this is a missing part. It's a missing link.
Yeah. So do you agree then? I mean, in your practice, you've been around for a long time, my lifetime you've been around, that the paleo and the ketogenic diet have it right? It's just we're missing some pieces?
I think they're going in the right direction.
Yeah?
Yep.
So what just that we just need to add these little components in?
Well, people need to read Radical Metabolism and see where they've gone wrong, for heaven's sake.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. It is the missing piece, though, for a lot of people, I think. Would you say that it's for everybody?
We have people that have had autoimmune issues. The most dramatic, I would say, testimonials that I get with the program are individuals that have autoimmune illnesses. I've got several people with rheumatoid arthritis that have given up nightshades because of my program. I've got people that are taking the omega-6s that have cleared up their psoriasis or their eczema or dermatitis. So there's a missing piece there. But more importantly, the lack of aches and pains, bodily aches and pains, that most of them were completely thrilled with because they didn't expect that would be a benefit of being on the program. I mean, everybody expects weight loss. I write about that, but not the lack of the aches and pains. So that's the kind of thing that happens.
And what about with parasites? Like, isn't there a big connection between the gallbladder and parasites? I read your book along to the critter book.
Oh, guess what came to dinner? Well, they like to live in the gallbladder duct, but everything.
Okay, that's what it is.
Gallbladder. So you need to clean it out, whether you're doing my program or the bitters that we're talking about, or eating the foods or the diet or the do-it-yourself drinks. Yet they love to live, particularly Giardia loves to hang around the bile ducts.
What about blastocystis?
Blastocystis is a problem with hypothyroidism, particularly Hashimoto's, but that doesn't necessarily live there.
Okay. Because I have blastos, so I have to ask.
That's another problem, but that's another discussion and another.
It is
book.
Yeah, yes, it is. As a whole other podcast, right?
You got it. That's one of my favorite topics, though, Karen, most definitely.
Well, and I thought about last year to have you on to talk about parasites, and then I don't know where it went, the idea. And then this year I was like, okay, I have to get her on. She's got this new book. Let's do this. So I'll have you back again to talk about parasites. So another thing you talk a lot about that has, I feel like, so many different views on is protein intake, because I remember reading Mercola's book, and he was like, as you age, you have to eat way less protein, and then other people, you have to eat way more
I
protein.
disagree. I respectfully disagree. These are my friends out there.
Mm-hmm.
Respectfully disagree. As we get older, you actually need more protein. It's very important for the preservation of muscle tissue and metabolism. It increases metabolism by 25%. I think you can go up to 100 grams, and if you're an athlete, even more.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think of the carnivore diet? That's kind of getting a lot of attention lately. The carnivore diet, where they just eat meat. That's it.
They just eat meat?
Just eat meat. Yeah, you haven't heard about this?
Well, it's pretty insane. You certainly need the vegetables, the fiber, you need the essential oils. We're such a nation of extremism. We got to get off of that. And people are fatter than ever. I mean, I came back from a cruise. I took a look at what everybody was having for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There were very few of us that were choosing wisely, and that is the salads, the proper dressing. On the boat, I brought my own hemp seed oil, I must admit. So I made my own dressing, but at night, real extra virgin olive oil, the real deal, high in polyphenols.
Wow, no, I know, and I agree. It's a growing epidemic, and it's not easy to lose weight anymore. I think it was back in 1970s, before of all this stuff, all these toxic
it was easier, but people are so much more toxic. People are surrounded by toxicity that's affecting the hormones, it's affecting their thyroid. We're surrounded by electropollution, which is affecting the cortisol production in your glands. So the cortisol is affecting us. The obesogens in the environment, the plastics, the pesticides. It's a wonderful time to be living on so many levels, but you have to detox on a daily basis. So this program, unlike the ketogenic diet or the paleo diet, has built-in detox mechanisms with the whole breakfast, lunch, and dinner, especially my breakfast, where we have our citrus blasters. So I'm very involved with detox. I believe no detox without diet, and no diet without detox.
Yeah, and I really like, in the beginning of the book, you kind of give this 4-day reboot. I'm not going to tell anybody about it because I want you to buy the book, but it's a nice little kickstart to overhauling your health. And she gives you this 4-day quick blast detox, and then takes you through a 21-day program. And I have to say, I loved it because you weren't super restrictive. I mean, you had some dairy in there, you had some nuts and seeds, and it wasn't, you didn't eliminate everything. It didn't have to be this like crazy, deprivation diet or anything. It's not like that.
No, because some people can tolerate more protein, less protein, more carbohydrates, less carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. People need to have snacks. They need to have fiber. They need to have crunch. And so it's a pretty balanced program. Again, it's not keto and it's not paleo, but it falls somewhere in the middle, and it's much more user-friendly for women because it's a hormone-friendly program.
Okay, can you explain that a little bit? Like, what makes it hormone friendly?
The essential fatty acids that we've just spent some time talking about. Those hormones are those essential oils, essential fats, more importantly, are precursors to hormones. So that's very important for the balance of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and the adrenal-based hormones.
Right. Awesome. All right. Well, you guys can find Anne Louise and all of her books at annelouise.com. You can order her book off of Amazon or any of the other big book outlets. I got mine on Kindle, so it was great. So yeah, I would highly suggest it. It's a real missing piece, like we've talked about, to the paleo and ketogenic diets, and really female friendly, like she said. And I'm all about that because I see a lot of women going on these drastic diets that are doing more harm than good. And even if they're not doing a drastic diet, if they are paleo or keto, I still see women doing harm to themselves on some of these, on certain keto diets that I see out there on the internet. So her program is really all encompassing, and I would highly suggest checking it out. So thank you, Anne Louise, for coming and talking to us today.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful radical day.
You too.